So when we think about content, we mentioned this earlier about, being on social media. You have to be on Instagram Reels, TikTok, Facebook, Medium, YouTube, all these things. Well, that doesn't fly with me personally. I'm one human being. I cannot be everywhere at once because it doesn't work, right? And a lot of people think to themselves like, oh, like I just need to be more consistent. And I don't think consistency is always the answer. I think there's probably the answer of finding a better way to be consistent. And we're going to talk about what that looks like in a second. But what that looks like for me is creating content once. Instead of you being able to create content on all these different platforms, I would recommend that you actually create content once on one single platform and let that be a long form content piece platform, right? And so play to your strengths. For me, it's writing. I love to write. I'm also trying to get into YouTube, as we see here. But when we think about long form content piece, if we were to focus all our efforts on that one specific area, then we could do the next step of automating your content repurposing, right? Because when we think about being everywhere, it's not necessarily meaning that you need to create content from scratch and create new content ideas for all these different types of platforms. Like, let's not do that. Let's take our long form piece of content and let's automate it through content repurposing. A lot of people think to themselves, audience needs to be on social media. And I personally disagree. And it's ironic that I'm a content creator and I don't spend a ton of time on social media, but there's a reason behind that. The reason behind that is because social media is really meant to build your brand. But if you want to build your income, I would 100% recommend that you build your email list or your own audience. And I'd like to give a little bit of a story on how important that is. So when we think about what ended up happening, so last year, one of my social media platforms, they contacted me and said, hey, like, there's some error that's coming up. We might ban your account. And that was very alarming for me. Obviously, I didn't do anything wrong, and we've ended up fixing the situation. But what I realized in that situation was like, oh, dang, like if they, shut my social media account, then I lose access to my audience. I lose the traffic strategy that I've been able to drive towards my products and my affiliate products and all those things. So basically my income can be shut down overnight just by a simple decision. And if that person who was great customer service did not listen to me, then I would be in a very difficult position, right? And so that's when I really thought to myself, like, okay, we need to pump the brakes on social media. How can I build my own audience without social media? And so that comes in the form of the email list. Now, the other layer of automating your nurture, right? So we drive all our traffic to our email list. When we're thinking about, nurture, I actually like to think of email automations or RSS feeds, right? So let's just talk about what email automations would look like. But essentially, when we're thinking about nurture, we basically think of that as a way to continue the conversation, right? So when I'm thinking of continuing the conversation, hey, a person joins my email list. How can I give value to them? Well, maybe I can give value to them by giving them a freebie or giving them, access to a product that it's normally paid, on the front end, but giving it to my audience for free as a way to say thank you. And by the way, we do that in my newsletter. But that is all automated, right? I just sat down, wrote an email sequence, and put it in an email automation process. And when a person joins my list, I can make sure that I'm keeping them engaged. I'm keeping them, on the radar of like, oh, what's Tina posting today? Like, oh, like I'm curious on what's going on in Tina's life, those types of things. And that's the relationship that you want to create with your audience, right? And another layer of this that I also talk a lot about is an automated newsletter, and that's in the form of RSS feeds. And so that's just something where there's another layer for you to continue that engagement. Now let's talk a little bit about automated conversions, right? For me, some of my non-negotiables is I don't want to do sales calls. So that definitely limits the amount of ways that I can make money, right? And so when I think about high leverage ways to make money, I'm thinking about digital products or affiliate marketing, right? And so when we think about automated conversions, well, if we take that pre-step of automating our nurture sequence and all those things, then what we can do is we can decide to give them an invitation, our audience an invitation, where it's like, hey, I know you've been receiving these emails for, the past couple days. Wouldn't it be worthwhile for you to actually take it a step further? And I can help you do that through one of my courses.